Okay, so you know how sometimes you stumble upon something that's just so intriguing, it kind of makes you reevaluate what you thought you knew?
Totally, like you go down this rabbit hole and suddenly everything seems connected in ways you wouldn't have imagined before, right?
Exactly. And that's what happened with this deep dive that you all sent in. It's from Star Trek, The Next Generation, the episode where no one has gone before. You were all super curious about those pivotal moments where the unexpected throws everything into chaos and how people react under those kinds of pressures. And, well, this episode really delivers on that.
Yeah, it throws you right into the deep end from the get-go, like when this propulsion expert, Kosinski, shows up on the Enterprise with his assistant,
Yeah.
the Traveler,
Yeah.
and immediately you get this sense that things aren't quite right,
Yeah, right off the bat, Commander Riker, this seasoned officer with a knack for sniffing out trouble, takes one look at Kaczynski's warp drive specs and is basically like, nope, this is nonsense. And it's not just a hunch. Data's computer analysis backs him up, showing zero improvement in engine performance.
Right, so you've got this head-to-head right from the start, established science and experience versus this newcomer's claims. But then it gets even weirder because Starfleet intelligence reports actual propulsion increases on two other ships that ran the same tests.
Which throws a real wrench in the works. So now the question is, are the Enterprise's new engines somehow messing things up? Or is something else going on, something maybe even shady?
It really highlights how even with data, things can get complicated. Like multiple interpretations and more questions than answers.
Totally. And then Kaczynski himself shows up and he's just dripping with arrogance. He barely acknowledges Riker, practically demands a meeting with Picard. And it basically acts like he's the only one smart enough to understand what he's doing.
Classic case of ego getting in the way, especially in a critical situation. And it's not just Riker who picks up on this weird vibe. Counsellor Troi, with her empathic abilities, senses something really off about the Traveler, like there's a complete void where his presence should be.
Yeah, that's a seriously creepy detail, isn't it?
It adds this whole other layer of intrigue. You've got Kaczynski's outward arrogance, and then this almost ghostly emptiness surrounding the Traveler.
And when Chief Engineer Argyle tries to ask Kosinski about his methods, just basic questions, he gets completely brushed off, like Kosinski treats him like he's an idiot for even asking.
And all the while, the Traveler's just silently observing, fixated on young Wesley Crusher's work.
Yeah. That seemingly small detail turns out to be super important later on.
Oh, yeah. Huge implications. But, Kaczynski's explanations of his theories, they're all just vague talk about nature and the elementals of space and time. It sounds impressive, but there's no real substance to it.
It makes you wonder if he even knows what he's talking about or if he's just trying to cover up his lack of knowledge with fancy words.
So then comes the first test, and the warp core starts acting all wonky.
Yeah.
And then there's this tiny, almost unnoticeable interaction between the Traveler and Wesley's console.
Yeah.
It's a slight adjustment, easily missed.
And then, bam, the Enterprise doesn't just hit warp 10, it blows past it, accelerating to speeds that were thought to be impossible. The view screen goes haywire, and they're not just going faster. They've traveled an unbelievable distance.
It's like stepping off a cliff into the complete unknown. 2.7 million light years in a matter of minutes. That's like crossing the distance to the Andromeda Galaxy in an instant, and they end up on the far side of the Triangulum Galaxy.
Yeah, to put it into perspective, if they tried to get back at maximum warp, it would take them over 300 years. So this isn't just a wrong turn. This is a complete leap into uncharted territory.
And how does Kosinski react to this insane, terrifying situation with total self-absorption? He brags about his wonderful, incredible mistake and starts throwing around technical jargon that even Picard can tell is complete gibberish.
Yeah, it's pretty clear at this point that Kaczynski's so-called brilliance isn't going to help them get out of this mess.
So the focus shifts from proving a new technology to figuring out how the heck they got where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where Wesley's sharp observations come in.
Yeah, he's the one who notices the Traveler messing with the console. And even before that, he gets this feeling that space-time and thought might all be interconnected. He sees something in the warp formulas that hints at this deeper connection.
And what's the Traveler's reaction?
He basically shuts Wesley down, tells him to keep quiet about that kind of dangerous nonsense, especially at his age. Like, the Traveler knows something huge that the rest of the crew's just starting to grasp.
It's like he's holding back this incredible knowledge, and it's almost scary how much he seems to understand.
Meanwhile, Kosinski is still obsessed with himself proposing this Kosinski scale for their ridiculous new speed. He's totally reveling in the idea that he's broken the warp barrier.
But Picard cuts through that immediately.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about any of that.
No.
He just wants to know if Kosinski can do it again, and more importantly, can he get them home?
Survival and getting back is all that matters now.
Exactly. And then during the second attempt, things get even stranger with the Traveler. This time, Wesley sees him straight up vanish and then reappear just as the warp core overloads again.
It's not just subtle manipulation anymore, it's something way more bizarre.
And this time they're thrown even further away over 1 billion light years to a place literally described as where none have gone before. It's like they're being deliberately, but maybe uncontrollably moved.
Like a pawn in some cosmic game.
And then things start getting really freaky on the ship.
Yeah, it's like reality itself is starting to unravel.
Worf sees a vision of his childhood pet, a Targ, which then morphs into a random ginger cat on Tasha Yar's console.
Picard almost walks into open space from a turbolift that malfunctions out of nowhere.
Tosh gets hit with a super vivid and terrifying flashback to her traumatic past on her home planet.
They even have a Mozart performance that includes a Starfleet violinist who clearly shouldn't be there historically.
It's as if the ship's environment is reacting to their thoughts and memories.
It's Picard who figures it out. He calls a red alert and tells the crew the truth. They're in a place where the physical world and their thoughts are merging.
So what they think they can unintentionally make real.
Yeah, controlling their thoughts becomes absolutely essential for their survival.
It's a situation with huge consequences.
And then the truth about Kosinski and the Traveler finally comes out.
Riker reveals that Kosinski's equations were meaningless the whole time. It was the Traveler who was manipulating the experiments.
And Kosinski admits he actually thought he was on the Traveler's level.
Talk about self-deception.
It's kind of sad, actually.
And then Wesley confirms what he saw before the Traveler phasing in and out.
Proving that he's something way more than just a simple assistant.
So they revive the Traveler, and he finally reveals himself. He's not a propulsion expert. He's a being who explores different realities, and he can focus thought like a lens.
He confirms what Wesley sensed, that thought is the basis of all reality, and that the energy of thought is incredibly powerful.
He admits he was careless and explains that the Enterprise is in a place where thought directly shapes reality, a place they're not supposed to be in until far into the future when humanity has learned to control this power.
And his explanation of where he comes from and what his purpose is really vague but super interesting.
He implies he's from beyond our understanding of linear time. And he says he's only now taking an interest in humanity because until now we were uninteresting.
So the question is, what changed, what made us interesting to him now?
Yeah. Could it be our scientific progress, our resilience, or maybe our growing understanding of consciousness?
It's a big question. But in the meantime, they're still stuck 1 billion light years from home.
Right. So Picard, being the practical guy he is, asks the Traveler straight up, can he get them back?
And the Traveler agrees to try, but he asks for a private talk with Picard.
During this talk, the Traveler reveals something amazing about Wesley.
He sees Wesley's natural understanding of time, energy, propulsion, the ship's systems. He compares him to Mozart as a child prodigy, but in science instead of music.
But he also says Wesley shouldn't be told about his potential.
Like it needs to unfold naturally.
So for the final attempt to get back, Picard tells the crew to focus their thoughts on their duty and on helping the Traveler.
Interestingly, the Traveler needs Kosinski at the console for this.
Kind of ironic considering how arrogant Kosinski was before.
Big dose of humility there. So they engage warp, and for a second, it looks like it's not working.
The tension is super high.
And then Wesley just instinctively squeezes the Traveler's hand.
And in a flash of light, they're back where they started at warp 1.5, and the Traveler is gone.
It feels like a victory and a loss at the same time.
Yeah, like a sacrifice or maybe a transformation.
Afterward, Picard promotes Wesley to acting ensign, recognizing his potential and telling him to learn everything about the ship and apply to Starfleet Academy.
It's a powerful acknowledgement of Wesley's abilities and the importance of nurturing talent.
So as you can see, this deep dive took us on quite a journey.
Yeah, we started with unexpected breakthroughs and personality clashes and ended up exploring the very nature of reality and the power of thought.
It's a lot to process, but think about it for a second. What if thought really did have that kind of power?
What kind of self-control would we need to navigate that reality?
What amazing things could we achieve, but also what terrifying dangers could we unleash?
And what do you think made humanity suddenly interesting to the Traveler? Was it our scientific curiosity, our resilience, or something else entirely?
This episode really makes you think about the potential within ourselves and others. If thought can shape reality, what are the limits of what we can do or even imagine?
Maybe the greatest explorations aren't just out there in space, but also